guys, Coach Daniel Cobb here again. So we're just gonna keep making videos upon videos upon videos upon videos till we don't got no more videos to make. So the next video over here I want to bring to you is a story of how, basically why did I fall in love with BJJ, why did I fall in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story. I actually started, I'm actually half British, half Brazilian. And I was born in England in '89, October 5th, 1989. And when I was, my dad's British and my mom's Brazilian. And when I was 3 years old, I started actually doing judo. So that was my first little bit of contact with martial arts, because already at that age, I think my brother and I used to already get into maybe a little bit of scraps or disagreements or whatever it was. And basically, when I moved to Brazil at about 4.5, 5 years old, I got back into it. It was always kind of a discipline thing. My parents being like, kids, don't fight, go take it out at martial arts. And actually, when I was young, I would go through these phases of, watching Dragon Ball Z or watching other shows and wanting to be like a ninja or a Street Fighter or Ryu or something like that. But right away after like a few days, I didn't like it, whether it was the teacher, whether it was whatever it was. And I saw it just as a discipline thing from my parents. So that was kind of growing up to the age of 12 years old, on and off between, martial arts, soccer, and again, mostly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, judo, you know what I mean, going together there. When I came to Canada, really wanted to play American football like CFL style, NFL style, right? And got into that and was super into that. All I thought about was that. I threw Jiu-Jitsu away, soccer away, and only thought about football. And when I got to about, and for you guys who might know, right, football's really tough on your body. Like, I was all about that. I was about being scary, mean. I was a linebacker, so all I did was hit people and so on. And it was really good for my intensity and things like that. But where it was bad is I had life completely off balance. Everything was just about that. It took many years till I could get a little bit of a better grasp on that. But when I was about 16 years old, I got back into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A friend of mine used to actually train Jiu-Jitsu. This guy I used to play football with and go to high school with him. And so he said, hey, you should come down to the gym. There's a Brazilian guy who teaches there. So I went and started doing it. And immediately after, a few sessions, pretty much I was in love with it. I was hooked with it, and I knew I wanted to get to it. But I was still kind of doing football at the time. And what was really interesting was as it evolved, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and as I got more and more into that training, it started to get me to think in a more balanced manner. Football was all about sacrifice for the team and like going to war, you know what I mean? Literally throwing yourself at people with no concern for your own well-being over the long run. And Jiu-Jitsu started to really make me question that, going like, oh wait, you don't want to get punched in the head, you don't want people to headbutt you. It's probably a bad idea, but here I was as a linebacker simulating car crashes every single play, running head-to-head at practice, head-to-head, you know what I mean, in games and all of that. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu started to balance me out and started to get me to really care for myself and have some level of self-care. And that's sort of an immediate thing that jumps to me as a reason for why I fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Over the years later on, obviously it was a competitive outlet for me, and I didn't yet have a good sense of balance, overall life balance with it, but it was my competitive outlet. I really just gave her at that. Life was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I used to write out, draw the different logos, sort of like Gracie Triangle styles, all the versions that were going to be Daniel Cobb Jiu-Jitsu down the road, and was, so many of my notebooks in high school, towards the end of high school, instead of having notes, actually had just that, little triangles and things of that nature. And that was it for a little while. I even had, dated like, when I'm 18, I'm going to win this championship and I'm going to get this belt. And then a year later, I'm going to get this belt and I'm going to win that world championship. And by age 21 or 20, I'm going to be black belt world champion. And then get my first degree at this age and this grade, red and black belt. So I thought I had it all mapped out, that I knew where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and life were going to take me. But that wasn't what life had in store for me. It was really interesting because at some stage, especially for you guys who don't know, I'm located in Winnipeg, Canada. There's not a whole lot of competitions going on here, although we are heating up the scene here. Basically, it was really frustrating because you'd fight all the same opponents all the time, and then when it came to travel to go compete at these world championships and Europeans and Brazilian championships and so on, it was a lot of money to travel and like convince somebody to sponsor you, you know what I mean, for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. it isn't happening, you know? And so kind of a big point, the next point of why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu turned, you know, was I fell in love with it so hard. A second time, I will say, was that towards the end we'd be getting really frustrated with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and competitions and so on, and how much it costs. It got me thinking, why do I do this? Like, why do I compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Why do I do this at all? Like, is it only going to be for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Is it only going to be just to score some points, have my arms raised, or maybe just submit a partner, an opponent? And I started to really realize that that wasn't enough to keep me over the long run. It wasn't. Kind of got a little bit of that ADHD where I'm going to shift topics, I'm going to move to something else in the future, right? And so what ended up happening was I started to take the mats, kind of like that concept, right, of life as a fight. And I took it as, well, if life is a fight and I'm training how to fight, what philosophies can I take from fighting and apply them to my life, right? Like, let's take it for now, for example, this COVID, right? COVID-19 thing. Listen, we are under pressure, but it is not the same as having the 300-pound guy at the academy have their belly fat in your face, and when you try to suck in air, inhale air, you've got his fat going in your nostril and coming out. Just disgusting. Or you're getting little bits of his hair stuck in your mouth, you know what I mean? All this stuff, like horrifying, terrible, true pressure, in your face pressure. And right now, that's not what we're suffering. So we need to be chill under pressure. We need to be cool under pressure. You know what I mean? And this is a moment that, like, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is directly translating, you know what I mean? A philosophy from there is directly translating into my life and helping me now. Sometimes you're in a situation where, hey, the threat's coming close to you, you know? And if you keep backing up trying to run away from the threat, you're going to be in the perfect striking range for the threat to get you. So sometimes actually jumping at your threat ahead of time becomes actually the thing that you need to do. You need to, you know, the obstacle is away. You need to, you know, the only way is through. You know what I mean? You don't get to run around these problems. And martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically, really resonated with me when it came to this idea of taking, again, philosophies that apply on the mat space and then being able to bring that over into life. Every day I use it, you know what I mean? You get tapped out, life didn't go your way, you went for a job or you went to try and get a loan from the bank or whatever it is, and it didn't work for you. Remember the saying was really good. I actually picked it up from somebody who it wasn't Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu related, but failure is simply practicing at success. That's all it is. So if you failed at whatever it is, I failed in a roll and I got tapped. That's practice for success. That's all that is. That rep was just practice. There is no end of the road. My life ended after that tap. I get to shake hands, I get to go again, and I get to get tapped again, or maybe tap the guy, or maybe just survive the rest of the round, whatever it may be. But this is going to be those incremental little improvements towards me getting to where I eventually want. So these are sort of some of the reasons why I fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I continue to fall in love with it. Maybe not every day, but every so often I have a refueling of my passion, you know. And I think it's a really important, probably the most important thing that still got me on the mats, you know, many years later. So hopefully this was helpful, and that's it. Thank you. Cool, another one.